You're listening to the Wordslinger Podcast, episode 35, Finding Work You Love with Grant Baldwin.
Writing is difficult, but it is worth the effort. Kevin Tomlinson can help you develop a daily writing habit that will let you write your book, improve your website, and build or grow your business. Visit kevintomlinson.com and start writing now.
It's the Wordslinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
True love will follow you forever.
That's the kind of clip I probably should have played in the episode with Paul C. Brunson, but it equally applies here because we're going to talk a little bit about finding work you love, and we're going to talk to Grant Baldwin, who has a whole career built around that. He's got this whole entrepreneur enterprise that he's built up, where he actually, and I think what's really cool about what he does is he talks to a lot of kids about this stuff. And the idea here isn't it isn't that you have to figure out how to love the job you're in, although that can be helpful too. But it's about, identifying what you're really passionate about, identifying the sort of work that you're going to love doing, that's going to energize you and bring you back every day. And that may be a business of your own. You may be geared to be an entrepreneur, or it may just be going out and finding a job that, that you appreciate. So that's what we're going to talk about with Grant today. And I'm not gonna keep you back from that because I want you to get as much out of that as possible. So without pausing, without further ado, here is my interview with Grant Baldwin about finding work you love. Hey everybody, this is, well, you know who this is. You were listening to the intro. This is Kevin, and I'm here with my new friend. We just met, really, Grant Baldwin, and you can find him at grantbaldwin.com. You can check out his podcast too, and if you do, go rate that and rank that, and give him a review. We always like to do that. Grant is kind of serving the same group of people I am. He's out there helping people, figure out a career that works for them and help them get into something that they love. And man, I love that, Grant. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for. How you doing, man?
Doing awesome. It is a honor and a delight to hang out with you, buddy.
Oh man, I love it when I'm an honor for somebody for once. You and I were introduced by Joseph Michael Nicoletti, a.k.a. the Scrivener coach, who my listeners will remember him from episode 28 when I talked to him about course building. So how do you guys know each other? How did you guys meet?
He is my boy. We met at a conference, and I think we kind of loosely knew of each other. And so when we met at FinCon several months ago. And some of those guys you connect with immediately, and you're like, we've got this new bromance going. Mm-hmm. So we sat and we're just chatting, and we ended up chatting for several hours, and then hung out later with he and his wife, and just really hit it off. So we're in a mastermind together now, and we talk regularly, and I think the world of Joe. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love him actually. He's ever since we started talking, we've just been back and forth. He's also friends with my business partner Nick Thacker, and cool. We've done they've done webinars together. We're going to try to do something together. So that's been very cool. So
nice.
How about your business, man? Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my career for the past several years has been as a speaker. So I travel around the country, speak mostly. Most of my career up to this point has been with high school and college students. So I speak to some teacher stuff and some parent stuff as well. We're starting to do more entrepreneur stuff and more corporate stuff, but the bulk of it has been speaking at conferences and traveling around, and so I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Part of the challenge with speaking, like any service-based business for the most part, is it doesn't scale real well. So it's me and on one stage in front of one audience at one time in one place. And so you can only go to so many places, and you can only charge so much. So there's just kind of a cap to what you can do there. So we started the podcast almost a year ago now as a way to just kind of build a more of an online audience and try to do something that scales a little better. But it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I like. Okay, you're talking to high schools and college students. You said about this stuff, about getting out and kind of finding your passion and following that as a career path, huh?
Yeah, so we definitely do a lot of that with students. And part of what I began to realize was that, the way a 16-year-old is thinking about their career is different than the way a 26-year-old is thinking about their career. Yeah. So whenever we started our podcast called How'd You Get Into That, where we're just interviewing people that are doing interesting, unique types of work. Like this morning I interviewed a guy who is he does a lot with miles and points in the travel world and teaches people about that. And I just interviewed a girl who's a cartoonist, and I just interviewed someone the other day who's one of the top CrossFit athletes in the world. So just kind of these like unique type of people, just to hear how do you do that? Like how do you make a living from that? And so I think a lot of people, when I think back to whenever I was in that 26-year-old vein, I was asking myself the same question, like what do I want to do with my life? And there's that cool gig over there's a speaker over there. Like how did they get into that? How does someone actually make that a living? And so a 16-year-old or a 17 or 18-year-old, yeah, they're thinking about it, but whenever you are 26 or 36 or 56, like the way you approach and think about your career is completely different.
Yeah. So what are some examples? I'm intrigued by, talking to the 16-year-old, to be honest, because that seems like it would be tougher because, they're not thinking so much about a career as just sort of thinking about what they're going to be doing after they get away from this speaker that's, taking up their time or whatever, right?
Sure.
How do you deal with a 16-year-old? Like, how does that work?
Well, yeah, I speak at a lot of conferences, and I also do a lot of school assemblies. And with a conference, they want to be there, but with an assembly, they have to be there. So right. There's definitely two different types of audiences. So as a speaker, I got to spend a lot of time. I do a lot of comedy. I use a lot of stories. I use a lot of humor, just to try to earn their trust, so that whenever I give them something that I want them to really think about and chew on, that at least I've earned the right to be heard. So that's kind of the way we approach speaking to students on it. But whenever it comes to those topics of career and college and just kind of figuring out what's next, yeah, the way a 16-year-old thinks about it is kind of different. But I've noticed that as students get closer to graduation, that it gets very, very real. Like when they're when they're freshmen, sophomore, they're going, I don't know, we'll figure it out at some point. But when they're getting ready to graduate in a few weeks, it's like, dang, I gotta figure stuff out real fast. Yeah. And so we and same whenever we speak to we speak at a lot of college orientation events and freshman orientation events where I'll go in and I'll speak to a group of students who they will have arrived on campus, 24, 48 hours before, and are just kind of like, holy crap, I got to really grow up and figure some stuff out, because it's just getting very real. So helping students to figure out, and it's the same thing we talk about in the in the podcast for people, of helping people figure out what are you passionate about, what are you good at, what do you enjoy doing, and how do those things begin to translate into a career? Because we all got to work, we all got to make a living, we all got to do something. So why wouldn't you do something that you enjoy? And so, if anything, whenever I'm talking with students, it's just trying to break that mentality that a lot of them think, well, it's it's work, it's supposed to be miserable, it's supposed to suck. Yeah. I know teachers that hate their life, and my parents hate their life, and all these people that are around me hate their job. So that's the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to hate it. It's like, no. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, if you want it to be, that's fine. But why wouldn't you pursue something that you enjoy? Why wouldn't you pursue something that you're good at, that you're interested in? So sometimes it's just getting them to think a different way, and just to realize there's an entirely different option beyond just going through the motions of a career.
So how do you find your passion or something that you're going to enjoy as a career, especially that young? I mean, what's the process for finding that?
Well, I think you end up trying a lot of things, and one of the things I try to remind students a lot of is that that who you are as a person will continue to evolve and change over time. So, I mean, even you and I can. I mean, if you were to think back to who you were 5 years ago, I think we'd all agree, who we were 5 years ago is different than we are today.
You could make that music 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're just always evolving and changing. And so one of the things that I think a lot of students put a lot of pressure on themselves with is we feel the need to find the one perfect career. And this isn't just applicable for 16-year-olds. This is applicable for anybody. We feel this pressure to feel like I'm put on this planet to do one specific thing, and it's my job to figure out what that is. Well, that's an enormous amount of pressure if you're looking for one thing out of a massive amount of career opportunities. But I think for all of us, all of our interest, who we are, is always evolving and changing. And so So I tell students, like, listen, find something that you're into, and you can do for a few years. But if you do something for 3, 4, 5 years, 7 years, and then you decide to pivot and go a completely different direction, that's okay. But the chances of you doing the exact same career for 40 or 50 years of your entire career, it's just completely unrealistic. Now, there's people that'll do it, but that's oftentimes the exception and not the norm. Because again, we're just always evolving and changing. So I'm not a believer in 5-year plans or even 10-year plans. I just think that's ridiculous because you just have no idea what your life will be like. We were just talking beforehand that our family, we just moved to Nashville just literally a couple weeks ago. And a year ago, I would have never imagined that we'd be living in Nashville. And now here we are, So how does that play into the 5-year plan?
Right.
That throws off everything else going forward. So what if we get here and we discover some new type of business or career that's not even on our radar right now? So I want to be open to that versus coming across some type of new opportunity and feeling, well, I can't pursue that because I already I made my choice, and so I'm stuck here forever. It's like, no. Like you be willing and be open to pursuing and trying different types of things to figure out what a good fit for you might be.
Yeah, and that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, is that idea that if I do this and it doesn't pan out, it turns out I've made a bad choice, that somehow I've ruined my life and I'm stuck here. Like, how do you deal with that kind of thing?
Well, I tell students, and I tell anybody that there's 2 types of regret in life. There's the things that you do that you wish you hadn't done, and we all have our fair share of stupid. We could share those stories. But there's also the things that I didn't do that I wish I had tried. And so I don't want to get to the end of my life and look back and be like, dang, I wish I would have given that a shot. Like, I think I could have made that business work. I think I could have become a speaker. I think I could have started a blog. I think I could have started a podcast. I think I could have become an author. I think I could have done that thing, but I will never know because I didn't even try. And so you can't win if you're not willing to even step out on the field or step out on the court. So just being comfortable with the idea that I'm going to try something and it may work or it may be a colossal failure, but I don't know unless I try. And I kind of feel like that about our move to Nashville. Literally, we've been here literally 3 weeks, and people are asking like, well, what if it doesn't work? I was like, then we'll move somewhere else.
Right.
Like, sometimes we just put all this pressure on it, like, well, it has to work. I was like, no, it doesn't have to work. If it doesn't work, then I'm a little bit closer to what I know might be a good fit. So, which I think is another great lesson. Like I think of it like when you're taking a picture. If you have like an old school camera with the lens and you got to kind of rotate the lens around to get the shot in frame. Whenever you are first trying to get the shot in frame, you're making big dramatic turns to the left and then back to the right and back to the left and back to the right. And you're making these huge turns. But as you start to get it dialed in, the turns are much more subtle. And I'm just barely turning it until something's finally in focus. And I think that's the way careers are. I think that's the way life is that early on in life, we don't really know what we're good at. We're not really sure what we're passionate about. We're not really sure what we would enjoy doing as a career. So I'm making these massive turns to the left and to the right, just trying different things that may be completely unrelated. But each time I do that, I get a little closer to figuring out, okay. Now that didn't work, but I did like this, and this really resonated. So let's turn it back this direction and see if I can find what would be the best fit.
Have you ever seen the commencement speech that Neil Gaiman did for the College of the Arts? Because it reminds me of that.
I don't think so.
And I think you'd enjoy it. And that's basically his philosophy, was that he never had a career plan. He just had a list of things he wanted to do, and he considered it as a mountain. And everything he did had to move him closer to the mountain. And so he ended up turning down good jobs that he would have taken a year or two earlier, but because they didn't move him closer now, he refused them. So I think that sounds kind of like the same idea, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
In
you
general.
just... Yeah, I mean, having a 5-year plan or a life plan, like you just don't know. But at the same time, I think it's important to have like some big picture things, some things that like, these are the things that really, really matter to me. So for example, I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We have 3 little girls. So I live in my own little Barbie dream house with a bunch of women. It is awesome. I absolutely love it. And so no matter what I do in terms of a career, that may evolve and change. But I know that my relationship with my family, that my role role as a husband, my role as a father, those things are top of the list for me. So I always, any type of decision making I'm doing, I run through the filter of how is this going to affect my role as a husband or as a father. So I think it's important just to kind of think through, like, what are the things that matter to me? My career may change, but I know that my family means a lot to me, or travel means a lot, or freedom or flexibility. And just kind of know what some of those big picture things, that could look a lot of different ways, but at least having some idea of what those things may be helps you to kind of zone in on what maybe which direction you should go.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're heading somewhere toward the horizon. You don't know exactly where, but at least the horizon is a direction, right?
Yeah, I heard a great analogy recently, and I think it was the analogy was for writing a book, if I remember correctly. But the nutshell was basically when you're driving at night, you can only see as far as the headlights will show you, but you can drive for hundreds and hundreds of miles that way.
Yeah.
And I thought that's just such a great analogy for life. Like, we can only see just a few feet in front of us. You have no idea what will happen today, tomorrow, next week. There's no idea what will happen. So I can only see a few feet in front of me, but I can travel for miles and miles. I can travel for years and years of my life doing the journey that way. And I think that's just such a spot on analogy of what life's like.
So, all right. You're doing that. You're taking that risk, I guess, is kind of a good word for it. And then the bad choice happens. Like you got into something that you regret getting into. Like, how do you recover from the bad choice?
Well, I think one way to approach it is I like to view things as an experiment. Because if you're putting all your eggs in the basket and the basket breaks or the eggs all shatter, then you're devastated. Yeah. But if you view something as an experiment, if an experiment works, great. It was just an experiment. But if it doesn't work, oh well, it was just an experiment. So I think some of it's just kind of your frame of reference going into it. And again, going back to the analogy of moving for us, we've just kind of viewed it as an experiment. Like, I think it'll go really well. And so far in the few weeks we've been here, it's gone really, really well. And we're really digging it. But I don't know, like, so something catastrophic could happen in the next few weeks, and we're questioning our decisions of life to come here. But you don't know. And so, but if you view it as an experiment, then it's like it didn't work. Well, it was an experiment, and now let's try something else. So I think just taking the pressure off of feeling like everything has to work and everything has to align and everything has to fall into place and everything has to be perfect. Like that, this is life, and life is messy, and so it doesn't always work. We as an entrepreneur, or as an employee, or just as a parent, as a spouse, as a human, you're going to try things that just are disasters. They just don't work. But when you take some of the pressure off going into it, going like this, if this works, I want it to work. I'd prefer it to work than not work. But if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. My life will go on. So I think another thing too is the perspective of, like right now, maybe you're trying something and it's not working, and you're frustrated, you're ticked off, you're just beating your head against the wall, you're bummed at yourself, you're kicking yourself, and you're just down about the whole situation. Right now, it feels brutal. But if you fast forward in your mind, 5 years, this is going to be a little tiny blip on the radar, and you will have learned something from that experience. You will have grown from this experience in some way that will help you to continue to make you a better person in the future.
Yeah. All right. So I like that idea of it's an experiment. You can always change direction. But when is it time to give up and change direction? Or maybe give up's the wrong way. I hate using the term give up, but when is it time to decide that you need to make a change and go in a new direction?
Yeah, great question. I don't know that there's any like hard and fast rule of if you meet these 3 criteria, then you should quit and do that thing. So, I think oftentimes we look for those. What are those 3 criteria? What are those 3 steps? What are those 9 things that if you check all these boxes, then you know when you should stay and when you should go. And I don't know that exists. But I oftentimes I think a lot of people they know the right answer. Mm-hmm. They're just scared to admit it. So whenever you're doing something, if there's some little glimmer of hope, like I'm confident enough that if I stick with this is going to work. Because there's a big difference, but there's also a fine line between being confident and just being stupid. Yeah. Like some things, like it doesn't matter like how much work you put into it. Like that's not going to work. And so just kind of having the wisdom to to know which is which. And one thing is just surrounding yourself with people that like love you enough to tell you how it is. Like think of did you ever watch American Idol?
I have watched it. Yeah, I don't watch it right now.
I'm not like a big. Yeah, I don't either. I'm not like a big American Idol fan, but like I always remember like the early seasons of it with those original judges of Paula, Randy, and Simon, and you'd have someone that would audition that was clearly horrible, and everybody knew that they were horrible, and so you had both ends of the spectrum. You'd have someone like a Paula who thought everybody sounded beautiful. Oh, that was wonderful. And when you sang, I saw a rainbow and ponies and unicorns and sparkle dust. And it's like, really? Are we listening to the same person? And then on the other end, you'd have someone like Simon who would just rail on people. And like, granted, like he could probably tone it down or use some tact from time to time, but I think if any of us were auditioning for like an American Idol, we'd be much more interested in the feedback or the advice of a Simon versus a Paula, because I know at least he's going to be honest with me. Like at least he's going to shoot straight with me. Now, I think it's important though, like if you have those people in your world that give you feedback, whatever that feedback is, you still have to run it through your own frame of reference. Does that align with what you're feeling, with what your gut is telling you, with what you're sensing? So, I mean, if you've got enough people that are telling you, like, you got to pull the ripcord and get out of that situation, or leave that job, or whatever that thing is, you want to pay attention to that, but at the same time, be willing to just listen to and trust your own instinct that has got you to this point.
Yeah, instinct that's very important, and it's hard to cultivate, I think, because it takes trust in yourself, and that's one thing I think a lot of people lack.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is. It's just trying something, and starting to figure out like, that didn't work or that worked, and so now I know how to tweak something going forward, and knowing how to just better trust my instinct, or what to look for or what not to look for.
Yeah, it's okay. So you're in this whole experimentation process. I mean, are there dangers that you should be aware of and that you should, shore up against? Like, one of the things that comes to mind is, if you're experimenting with your career in particular, and you go and you try something out for a while and it doesn't fit, so you go try something else. I mean, there's this old school notion that that's going to make you seem kind of unstable and wishy-washy, and you might have a difficult time, landing a job or getting clients to trust you or whatever you need. I mean, is that a legitimate danger, or is just something these days we don't really have to worry about?
I think it's less and less of a danger. I think, I think of like my mom, for example. My mom has worked, she's worked at the same hospital her entire career. She's literally had one employer. And I think for maybe a boomer generation, or even their parents, like my grandpa, he worked pretty much at the same factory his entire life and his entire career. And so that's kind of the way it was. You go to college, you get a job at the factory or the company, and you work there until you retire, and they give you the gold Rolex, and then you ride off into the sunset. And like that's the way work was. And so anything beyond just like, parking it and staying there for years and years and years was considered unstable. But I think now, like, I think people, they try new things and they move around more often and they have more changes. I read recently, the Department of Labor said this, that each generation will have more jobs than the previous generation, meaning that you and I will have more jobs than our parents did. Our kids will have more jobs than we had, because part of it is there's more opportunities that exist. There are way more opportunities that exist than were available for our parents. So I think it's more likely that change happens, and change is more common, and change happens more frequently than it would for previous generations. So now, I mean, that having said that, like if you're changing jobs every few months or every year even, that's a lot, like at some point you gotta like figure out like, all right, this is my thing. I'm going to do this for a little bit. But I think if you do something for 5-7 years or something, and then you move on, or even like 3 years and then you move on, that's fine. But if you're changing jobs like every year, you may want to reevaluate some stuff.
My resume, it kind of looks like a job board listing. I mean, if you go down that, I mean, my tendency was, if I ever worked for someone, it typically lasted about 2 years, and then I would, either I'd get antsy, or something would change in the company and I'd have to move on. So I'm glad to hear that that's not such a black mark anymore. That was one of those underlying fears I think I held on to.
No, I think that's true. And I think a lot of people I had that early on too, that whenever my wife and I, when we got married, I'd work at a job for a couple of years. She's like, all right, it's been 2 years. It is always around that 2 year mark. So, but I think also too with age comes to that maturity of like, no, I'm gonna, I found something I really enjoyed, and then you can camp out for a little longer. But I just don't see most people are going to do the thing where it's like, oh, I found this thing, and now this is the thing I'm going to do forever, So yeah, that would be my two cents.
Especially straight out of high school or college. I mean, I can't imagine coming out of high school. I was clueless. There was no way I was going to be able to pick the career. I say that, and yet writing was always the thing for me. But all the other careers I got into, I wouldn't have picked any of those straight out of high school.
Yeah. Again, you don't. Sometimes you don't even know what all the options are. It's like if you went to a restaurant and you sat down, they bring you a menu and you order something off the menu, and then they bring you your food, and then they bring you a second menu that had a bunch of options that weren't on the original menu. You'd be like, what? Why didn't you bring these to me?
Right.
And sometimes you don't know. All the options aren't available. There's going to be jobs that you and I may have someday that haven't even been invented yet.
Yeah.
Like that's just that baffles me at times. We all have these fancy smartphones and iPhones and iPads and this type of technology with lots of different apps that we use on a regular basis. Like that wasn't even a thing a few years ago. So if you had made a decision pre-app days and you were like, all right, I found my thing, this is what I'm gonna do forever, and then apps come out and you're like, dang, I wish that was an option, but it wasn't, so I guess I'm stuck. Like that sucks. That's not fair. So again, some of it's just taking that pressure off of feeling like if something else comes up that's of interest and is of relevance to what it is that I want to do, then I want to feel some of that flexibility and freedom to begin to go down that path too.
Yeah. There are actually things that I wish had been around when I was younger that I probably would have gotten into, but I don't think I regret that, I'm not in those areas. I mean, there's the whole app development world actually, I think I would have been interested in that when I was younger. Not so much now. I don't know why. My sensibilities changed.
And the opposite can be true as well. Like an analogy I use is like a movie trailer. There's times where we all see a movie trailer and the outside looking in, you're like, oh man, that looks awesome. I can't wait till that comes out. I can't wait to see that. Yeah. And you go see it and it sucks. It's just not what you signed up for. It's just not what you thought it would be. And that's the same case with some careers. Outside looking in, you're thinking that is the perfect gig for me, and man, I'm just gonna go all in on that thing, and you get into it and it's just not what you hoped it would be. That's okay. Again, you tried it was an experiment, it didn't work, not a big deal. Like you just pivot and go a different direction.
Yep that's it. Yeah. And the best thing you can try to do is take something from that can transfer to something else, right?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think anytime you are in a job or you're in a business or you're in some type of position where you feel like this isn't it, but I'm not really sure what the next thing is, there's still things that you can learn, so skills you can gain from that position that will benefit you down the road.
Yeah. So how would you cultivate transferable skills? Is there a knack to that? Something you would need to learn?
Well, I think part of the challenge is sometimes, like again, we don't have that magic crystal ball to look into the future to know what we might be doing. So if we had that foresight to see that I'm going to be, I know I'm going to be doing my own business someday, so I should probably figure out how to do accounting now, while I have the opportunity. Like some of that you can probably pick up of just knowing, like, all right, I don't know what kind of business I'm going to be in. I don't know what if I'm going to have employees. I don't know some of those type of things, but I know I'd like to be an entrepreneur, and in order to be an entrepreneur, I'm probably going to have to wear a lot of hats. So I should probably try to figure out some of those things that I know are going to be important to me at some point. I don't know how they're going to be important, but I have a good enough sense that they're going to be important at some point, because the fact is you can't be good at everything. So you really got to kind of pick and choose. Here's some things that I feel like I need a general knowledge on. I think that's another good point is like figuring out what are things like I need to have a general understanding of, so like accounting for me as a business owner, I need to have some decent idea of accounting and how that works, but I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax guy. I have a good enough sense about it to make decisions, but I have a full-time CPA who handles things for us. And so being able to recognize where your skills are, and knowing though that there may be a limit to what that may be in a certain space or certain niche or certain field, and then being able to find someone who can support you in that, who has maybe a better skill set in that, whatever that thing may be.
So is it better just to be a generalist for a while in your career? I mean, everybody says that you should specialize. I mean, that's the buzzword that gets kicked around. But is it better to just stick with being a generalist for a while?
Yeah, I think for a little while, or especially early on, because again, you don't know. You don't always know what you're good at or what you enjoy or what you're passionate about. So, like one mistake I see a lot of students make is they'll go to college and they get a degree in some like really niche thing, and then they come out and they are, they're ready to pursue that career and they get into it for a year or two and it's not what they hoped. Well, then it's not necessarily that they're stuck. It's not like, but that degree quickly becomes in a lot of ways irrelevant in terms of the actual education, because they went really, really narrow on it. They went really deep. And so I tell students, I'd rather you think wide instead of deep. If you got a general business degree, you can apply that in a lot of different ways. But if you get a degree in underwater basket weaving, you're kind of stuck there, for at least doing that for a season. Now, also having said that, the statistics are that 80% of people will be doing something different than what their degree is in 10 years after they graduate. Think about that for a second. So 10 years after graduation, 80% of people will be doing something different than what their degree is in. So I say that to say, if you're listening to this, you've got a degree in something and you're like, man, I'd really like to do something different, but this is what my degree is in, so I feel stuck. Don't. Because the reality is that you can still apply some of those things that you learned or things that you were taught in a variety of different ways beyond just what you went to school for. So don't let that be an excuse or a hindrance that's keeping you from pursuing work you love.
So are you doing something different than your degree?
Yeah, I am actually. I went to Bible college. I was a youth pastor for a little bit, and today I still speak to students in a different context, but I would argue that what my degree is in is very different than what I'm doing today. So if I could go back and do it differently, I'd probably get a different type of degree. I'd probably get a more of a general business degree. And I think it also kind of depends on what your career, what you're interested in doing. So there are certain careers more and more today where college isn't as important. College isn't as relevant. And I'm a fan of college. I've got a college degree, but I don't like the idea of someone, whether it's a 20-something or a 30-something or 50-something, going, well, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get a degree, and then I'm going to end up with $40,000 or $50,000 in debt, and then I'll just kind of figure it out from there. That's a crappy plan. That's not a plan, So that doesn't work. So if you're going to go to college, have a really clear understanding about why you're going to college and how it's going to benefit you in the future, beyond just like, well, if I go to college, then I should be able to get a job. No, you're not guaranteed squat just because you have a degree.
Yeah, that's no longer the reality. I know that there was a time. I mean, I remember clearly there was a time where having a degree meant you were a really good candidate for a job. But even at the I have a master's degree, and I can't count on that to get me into anything really. I still have to present myself, in the right light. I gotta impress them. I gotta show them value. So
yeah, I'll give you an example. Like I have a younger sister who's a graphic designer, and she's an incredibly talented graphic designer, and she's got a degree in graphic design. But let's assume for a second she didn't have a degree,
Yeah.
And I'm looking to hire you're looking to hire someone for graphic design work, and she presents her portfolio to you, and she doesn't have a degree, but she's really, really good. And then someone else does have a degree, but they're not as good. Does that mean you're going to hire the person that has the degree, but their work isn't as good? Like nobody would do that, So, so I think in some case, like even as a speaker today, like nobody hires me because of what my degree is in, or what it's not in, or where I went to school, or any of that stuff. People hire me because I'm a good speaker, or I'm a good fit for their audience.
Right.
So I think it's like any type of thing. There's going to be certain types of careers where, let's say, you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or a vet or something where it requires you to jump through a lot of educational hoops. Like you can't just be like, all right, I'm going to be a surgeon, so who wants to let me cut them open? Like it doesn't work like that, So you have to, you've got to go through the hoops in order to do that. But there's a lot of careers today that don't require you to go through those hoops, and doesn't require you to get some type of permission slip in order to start pursuing that type of career, which is nice. Like it's really, really freeing and liberating for a lot of people.
And I mean, my position on the specialized degree, I mean, I went back to college a couple of times, so I got multiple degrees. Okay, I did pretty much what you're talking about. I experimented. I figured out I didn't like what I was doing before, which was engineering, and then I went back and got a literature degree, and then a communications degree, and then I went and I decided I would become a teacher, so I got a master's in education. And that master's in education doesn't directly translate to anything I do except its credibility, and I've found creative ways to leverage that. And I think that's the key if you end up, going to basket weaving or some other specialized degree. Now you have to think creatively about how to use that degree. I mean, do you see that as being, is that kind of a valid way to look at that?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you go to college and you have a degree, and now the thing you're wanting to pursue is completely unrelated to what your degree is in. Yeah, it doesn't mean like those 4 years or that time invested is a waste. Part of the value of college is being able to teach yourself how to learn. Basically, we're kind of spoon-fed through much of our early education, elementary and junior high and high school and all that jazz. And then once you get out on your own, like they're like you don't have to show up to class if you don't want to, and like we don't really care if you we can just give you this really low grade and we can call it a day, and that's fine. Like nobody's requiring you to do anything really, So you have the ability to you have that you build that skill set of just learning how to learn. You learn the skill set of how to network with other people, how to manage your time, of how to control your finances when you're out on your own. So there's still, like, even if you have a degree in something that's unrelated, it doesn't mean that college experience was a waste. There's other skill sets that you learn there that could still help you and benefit you in the future.
Yeah. So, all right, how we talked a little about stability earlier. So I just kind of want to know what your definition of stability is in the new economy or the new world, I guess, the current world.
Well, I know this. I know that I would rather be in charge of my own stability and in control of my own stability. Like one thing I really believe is if my life is great or if my life sucks, I want it to be my fault either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't want. I mean, we all know those horror stories of people who, I had this job and I'd been with this company for years and years and years, and I was stable and secure, and I had the 401k and I had the benefits and the perks and the health insurance and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden I did nothing wrong. I did everything I was supposed to do, and it was just completely snatched from me. So I don't think anybody is really in any type of career or position is in a stable, secure situation. So I would rather be in control of my own destiny than kind of living on the whim of a company or organization.
I can't agree with that more. I mean, I just had a conversation with someone a few days ago, and we were reminiscing about old full-time jobs we had, and I was telling her, I worked for a company that I loved what I was doing. I loved my role there, and people respected me, and I was a big part of the culture there. And there was a sort of this merger of companies, and a new executive level person came in and restructured the whole department, and I was out. And it didn't matter what my contributions were till then. And that was a compromise for me at that point, because I had invested in being in that role. And after having worked solo for so many years, I had decided, well, this is a good thing, So that's the kind of danger you're in. There is no real job security or stability anywhere now. So I like your idea of kind of own the responsibility for your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather be in the driver's seat on it. There's a lot of things in life. Whenever I travel, for example, I travel quite a bit for speaking, and I'm traveling a lot for whether it's driving or flying. And I always try to figure out how can I. There's a lot of things that are outside of my control when traveling, but whenever I'm running into some type of hiccup or there's some type of delay or some type of issue, I want to figure out how can I be in more control of the situation. There's still some things that are outside my control. I can't control the weather. I can't control a plane. There's nothing I can do about that. But what are some things where I can at least put myself in a spot where I'm not just at the whim of someone else or the weather or something else that's outside of my control? So So figure out how that's relevant and applicable to you. What are the things that you can control? What are the things that you can't control? And the things that you can't control, there's nothing you can do about it. Like there's no point in getting bent out of shape over something that you can't control. And so you may have lost a job, or you may have been downsized, or you may have been let go for something that you had nothing to do with. And it's okay, for a season to be sad, to be bummed out, to be ticked off, to be pissed off, to be whatever. But at some point, like we gotta, like it just like life goes on, and we have to be able to say, okay, that sucked. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but like I still want to eat and live indoors, and so that requires me to I got to figure it out. I got to figure out what happens from here, rather than just feeling like you're a victim and the world owes you something.
So let's talk about your business itself now. I'm one of the things I'm always curious about is how you market your business. Like what are some of the ways in which you attract your clients and customers?
Well, as a speaker, I think one of the most important thing to do is to find the type of, and this isn't true for just speaking, but this is for anything, is find some of your ideal clients. And a lot of times we like the idea of, all right, I have this service that I offer, I have this product that I offer, so I should probably just put up a website, and if I build it, they will come, and I just wait for the phone to ring, and the money flows in, and the orders come in, and it just all magically works out. Like it doesn't work like that. Right. So as a speaker, like I've always been very, very intentional about reaching out to conference planners and event planners and meeting organizers and those type of people that I know are looking for a service that I offer, and I look at the types of events that they are organizing that I know I would be a good fit for. And rather than just waiting and hoping that they would magically find me, I'm very intentional about reaching out to them, saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, I think I'd be a great fit for what you do, and just trying to build a relationship with them. And I think that's really, really important in business, is to remember that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And any business is a relationship business. Anything else is just a joke. So like people, again, at the end of the day, whether you're selling a product or whether you have a service or there's some type of transaction that takes place, it is one human doing business with another human being. And so putting yourself in a spot where you can build those relationships and build those connections instead of just waiting for them to find you. Again, it goes back to the control thing we just talked about. Yeah, there are going to be people that, I've been speaking long enough that, people find me that I have no idea how they found me. And that's great, but I don't want to just depend on that. So I want to be in as much control as possible to go out and try to find business and continue to generate that for our company.
So what are some ways that you're building those relationships?
Well, initially, a lot of it I do through email. So I'll find the type of events or event planners that or conferences that I want to connect with, or I know I would be a good fit for. And so some of it's just reaching out to them and just saying, hey, here's who I am, this is what I do. And the other thing too is I try to remember that it is a long-term game. Whatever it is that you're offering or selling or any of that, realize that if someone doesn't buy from you today, it doesn't mean that they will never buy from you.
Yeah.
Like that was something early on in my speaking career. Like if I was up for a big conference and I didn't get it, but someone else did, for several days, I'd just be bummed out. Like, why did they get it and I didn't get it? Like, I'm a better speaker
Right.
than them, and who are they? And I'd just be selfish about it. But then I realized, like you know what, that conference that they got booked for, it happens again next year, and they're going to need another speaker then. So probably not best to burn a bridge with them, and probably just to say, hey, cool. Hey, I know that they're going to do a great job for you. I'll plan on touching base with you another year, and maybe we can make something work then. And so just having that long-term perspective that there's events that I followed up with for years and years and years, and then they finally booked me. And some of it's just being consistent and being persistent with it and just staying on top of it, again, rather than just waiting that, man, I didn't get the booking this year, but hopefully a year from now that they will magically think of me. Like I don't want to do that. I want to be in control of it, of reaching out to them and just trying to stay top of mind.
So how do you take care of the short term while you're working on the long term stuff?
Well, I think kind of depends on what you're doing, of what it is that, what kind of business you're trying to build and trying to create. Because there's some things you can get some revenue right away, and there's other things that it takes a little while. I may get booked for something today, but that event doesn't happen for 6 months. So that's great in 6 months when I get paid on that. But I need to eat right now. So So it depends on kind of where you're at in your career and what it is that you're trying to do. But that's why I think it's difficult for most people to just say, all right, I'm just going to quit my job on Friday, and Monday I'm just going to start something and hopefully it all works out. Like, don't do that. That's just dumb. So like, have some type of plan of what it is that you're building towards and what you're working on, so that you can see some type of path there that you're going down, and not just kind of like, I'm just, clicking my heels together and hope it magically works out.
Yeah. So do you have a plan B, or do you, once you commit to your plan, if it's a good plan, do you stick that out, or do you have a backup plan?
Kind of depends on what I'm doing. There's, I don't think, I never want to put myself in a spot where I'm like betting the farm, and it's kind of like this thing of like, man, if this works, this is going to be a home run. But if this doesn't work, we're going to be in really big hurt. Like I never want to put myself in that position. I always want to shore up my bets and make sure that we're, that we've just thought this through, and that I'm willing to. I'm very. I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm risk averse, but I'm not opposed to taking risks. But I want to think it through beforehand and make sure that as best as possible, I'm stacking the deck in my favor. Yeah. And so it's not something where it's like, man, if this goes through, great, but if this falls apart, I'm screwed, and I'm really putting myself and my family in a bad spot. Like I don't think that's wise.
Yeah, no, I agree. Although I am kind of a no plan B kind of guy, just because I know that when I'm hungry, I work harder. So maybe that's just it.
Well, and I would add this. I think it's easier to do that and have that mentality if it's just you. So for anybody that's listening to this, like I said, I'm married. I've got 3 little girls, and so I've got 4 dependents that are counting on me to provide. So it's a lot more difficult for me to be like, well, if we just have to, sleep on the air mattress in a 1-bedroom apartment and we can just share a can of beans for the next month. If it's just me and I want to do that, then by all means, fire away. But if there's other people that are counting on me, then you got to take that risk into a little more consideration.
Yeah, you're right. And I've been blessed to have, my wife is very supportive of this crazy stuff I'm doing, and so far I haven't had any any circumstance in which she would have to regret it. So that's been good so far. So that makes it a little easier to not have a plan B. I guess she is my plan B.
Yeah, there you go. That worked out well.
So what's your biggest source of clients? Do you draw people in through like Twitter or your blog or podcast or?
No, I mean, a lot of it, honestly, is still a lot of outbound stuff that we do of just, I guess my secret would be Google, of just kind of finding conferences that would be a good fit and connecting with them. Now, again, as a speaker, I mean, thankfully, the longer you do it, the easier it is to get booked, because, if you're good, then word of mouth is always going to be your best marketing. But I think, just being really intentional instead of just sitting back and just hoping magically that the phone rings. I don't want to be in a business where I'm just stuck and I'm trapped and I'm dependent on something else that I can't control in order to bring me customers, or clients or whatever it may be. I want to be able to go out to find it, and create something on my own.
Yeah. That's called being an entrepreneur. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just there's the highs and lows of it. There's days where being an entrepreneur, when it's good, it's really, really good, and when it's bad, it's really miserable. And I don't think any of us really understand the emotional roller coaster that it can be. Where there's days where you feel on top of the world, and days you're just like this. What am I doing? This sucks. I don't want to keep doing this, and I just feel miserable inside. So you definitely have the ups and downs of both.
Yeah. All right, well, we're up against that 45-minute window I told you we would work for, and I really appreciate you being on the show, man. It's been enlightening. I'm gonna listen back. I listen to every show because I'm my biggest fan, but I'm gonna listen back so I can take notes, better notes this next time. So thanks so much for being on with me, man.
Kevin, it was an honor. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, and everybody stay tuned for the wrap up, and I will see you all next week. And this is that wrap up I was just talking about. Is it a little weird sometimes that you hear me sign off? You hear me say, "Talk to you next week," and then immediately after that we jump right into this the back half of this wrapper. You can probably tell that I'm playing around with the format a little. I wanted, the whole point of this show is to deliver the kind of content that's going to help you figure out how to function in this new economy. How to build a career and apply some new thinking to the career you already have. That's what the whole show's about. So, I'm a member of this new economy. I'm an author. I'm a novelist. That's the work that I've chosen for myself, and I'm doing okay in that. And I'm also a podcaster. And I love this show, and the two they're connected. I'm still looking for the ways in which these two aspects of my work and life are connected, along with the coaching and everything. Honestly, I love coaching people. It's weird. There are times when someone pops in and they set up an appointment or something, and there's this little feeling of dread I get, and I don't know why. Just, I guess because my time is allotted, because who wants to commit? But then I talk to these people, and I'm like, I'm so glad I talked to you, because first of all, everyone I talk to ends up being just fascinating in their own right. They're authorities on their own topic. They're passionate about what they're writing about. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? Like, I get energized talking to these people. I get inspired as they get inspired. So I love it. So if you need help with, let's say you want to write, you want to build authority, you want to get out there and build some credibility for your expertise, or maybe you want to be a novelist, or maybe you want to, just write about what you know and use that as another stream of income, or as another way to promote yourself, or, just another way to reach people and help people. I'll help you. That's what I do. So if you want to kind of enlist me for that help, you can go to kevintumlinson.com, where you can find, I have a coaching and consulting button there that leads to a scheduling service. You can actually schedule some time with me. I recommend doing the free 15-minute discovery session. They generally end up going longer than 15 minutes because I'm a talker, and I also want to hear more from you. I generally, those things go, as long as they need to go. We'll try to keep it at 15 minutes to respect your time, but if it seems like we both want to keep chatting, we'll keep chatting, because it's about making friends as much as anything. So go check that out. I'm happy to help. The things that I can offer you that are very helpful. I talk to people not just about writing, but also about their sort of business and marketing strategy, primarily marketing. We'll take a look at your website. We'll take a look at, if you have an autoresponder series in email, we can take a look at that. If you don't know where to start, we can talk about that. There's a lot that we can do. You probably have more resources than you think. Most people do. When I talk to coaching clients, there's a real tendency for them to downplay what they have and what they've accomplished. So, that's bizarre. That's just bizarre, because I come from a world where you push that stuff out there, But then that's not true. I get it, actually. I do understand, because we've been taught not to brag, and that's good. That's good advice. And the humble brag has become a thing now, where people are really bragging, even though they're sort of aw shucks, that has its downside, but. The thing is, and this is interesting because I was just telling my wife about this today, because she is, there are things about her career that she would like to change, but she can sometimes be afraid to approach people. She feels like she's bugging them, and there's a potential someone in her life that she talked to months ago, maybe 6 months ago. I think it was more than 2 months ago, and she was talking about getting in touch with them. She says, I thought things went well. I don't know what went wrong there. I would love to talk to them, but I don't want to bug them. I'm like, you are not bugging these people by getting back in touch 6 months later to follow up. I mean, that's bugging them is you call them every hour or every other day or whatever, and you won't let them rest until they give you some answer or something. Calling or emailing them and saying, hey, I was thinking about you. I was talking about you this morning, and I just wanted to touch base and see how things were going, and let's have coffee or something like that. That's not bugging anybody. That's good. That's networking. So that's a tough concept, though. People, I get where that comes from. Anyway, I have a question, and it's more of a general question, and this one kind of came in through the feed. Let me check. Let me make sure I've got that. Hold on. All right. So it's not so much a question. It's a plea for help, but they didn't identify themselves, so I don't know, male, female, whatever. But here it is. My website is a mess. I want to update it, but I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start first. Help. Okay, so everyone's website is a mess at some point. My website, I always look at my website and think it's a mess. I don't know what everyone else thinks. But I recently did a sort of optimization of the site, and I'll be doing it again. It's just something I continuously tinker with. The great thing about a website is it's not permanent. I mean, you can make adjustments and test things, and that's what I would recommend is start with some small piece that you can test first, you can tinker with first. A lot of times, if you come in on someone's website, there's like a header, and actually, let's look at the home page of a website. A lot of times what they have is they'll have a header, and then they try to cram everything there is to know about them onto this one page. Here's where I would start. I would pick a page, and you'll do this with every page on your site, but decide up front what that page needs to do. What's the job of that page? And then look at the content of that page and decide, is it doing that job? And if it is doing the job, but there's extra stuff that you don't need, consider removing that stuff. Okay? So play around with rewriting headlines, rewrite some of the body copy. Actually, you can reduce copy, especially on the home page. And this is coming from a copywriter for many, many years, but you can actually reduce copy and become more effective. Try to think of things in terms of a tweet. You got a 140 character limit in a tweet. Try to describe yourself and your services in as few characters as possible and see what you get out of it. You might be surprised, because as you become more concise about how you describe yourself, you become more effective. So that's my big advice for that as a starting place, without seeing your website, anonymous stranger, and without being able to kind of look that over and talk with you one-on-one. I can't offer any more direct advice, but that is always a good starting point, is to decide up front what the purpose of it is. I tell people this not just for like a web page, but also in a book. If you're writing a book and you're not sure what direction to go in, or if you've written some things and you're not sure if they fit, look at each chapter and decide what the goal, what the purpose of that chapter is, and make sure that what you're doing answers that need. Find out what the pain point is you're trying to address, because that's the point. That's why people come to your site. That's why people pick up your book. What pain are you solving? And just sort of dig in and determine whether or not what you're doing is answering that need. So that's my big advice. That's a starting place for your website, for your marketing materials, your autoresponder series, anything that you're out there creating. Now, if you want to talk to me, and I wish I had your name. I'm so sorry. And I guess I grabbed this off email and I didn't grab the name. But if you want to talk to me, you can go and schedule that 15-minute discovery session, and we'll figure out if there's something I can do to help you out. And then we can get into sort of the paid stuff. I do offer coaching on this kind of thing, consulting. So don't be afraid to check into that. I've been doing, I've worked with web development as part of my career, as a creative director and as a marketing expert for years. So I can definitely help you figure out what your website needs to be. So go check that out. And the same goes for anyone looking to, write for a living, or just write something and to complement their business. Yeah, I do the same service. It's all really the same when it comes down to it. It's all about the story you tell and how you tell it, and if you're telling it with purpose and meaning. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Grant Baldwin today. If you want to check out more of his stuff, you can. If you go to grantbaldwin.com, there will be a link in the show notes. You can also follow him on Twitter at Grant Baldwin, at Grant Baldwin. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kevin Tumlinson. And if you have a question for the show, give me a call at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. Or you can go to wordslingerpodcast.com, and there's a tab, a SpeakPipe tab on the right-hand side where you can leave me a voicemail or send me an email. And as always, if you enjoy the show, if you're getting a lot out of it, I'd really appreciate it if you would go to iTunes and Stitcher and leave reviews. The stars are great. I love getting stars, but the written reviews make a huge difference. So honestly, they make me more discoverable, help me help more people. So if you love what you're getting out of this, I hope you do. I hope you're discovering your role in the new economy. I hope you are becoming the kind of entrepreneur or the kind of successful worker, I don't know, the employee that you want to be, if that's what you want to be. I hope this is working for you. And I will see you next week with another interview and even greater advice, we'll hope. Take care.
Word Slinger.